Committee will come to order. Today we're here to consider over 70 pieces of legislation. It's a record for this committee, rightfully so, being our last. Covering public lands, forestry, and water issues, these bills, along with the 50-plus that we've already reported this Congress, will form the basis of our efforts to get another public lands package across the finish line before the end of the year. We also have 3 advanced computing bills covering AI, quantum computing, and cybersecurity. The United States must meet the moment in an age where China is pouring billions of dollars in science and technology research. I'm particularly proud of Senator Murkowski's and mine and all the other co-sponsors we have on the DOE AI Act. The bill, which will leverage our world-class facilities at our national laboratories to undertake a comprehensive research and development program on artificial intelligence. We'll also be voting on several bills that we expect will carry a score, meaning they would effectively cost the federal government money. I remain deeply concerned about our national debt, which has exceeded $35 trillion, and we're right at $36 trillion as of this morning for the first time in our country's history. This translates to over $104,000 of responsibility for every man, woman, and child in America. If we do not do something soon, we will continue to make history for all the wrong reasons, solely due to our fiscal irresponsibility. And I can't in good conscience continue to add to that debt. So while these bills will be advancing through committee today, I won't agree to them moving further without a pay for identified and attached. Before I turn it over to Senator Barrasso for his opening remarks, I'd like to take a moment to recognize that today is our last business meeting of the Congress where all of our members will be here, and so potentially last time that I'm going to be sitting here alongside all of you at the dais. I've proudly served in this committee since I became a senator 14 years ago. And as my time comes to a close, there are a few observations I'd like to share. This committee has maintained an enduring commitment to bipartisanship, and that has served us and the country very well. In the last 6 years, as both a ranking member and as chairman, I have gotten a front row seat to that, and I felt a responsibility to continue it. That doesn't mean that we've always agreed, but rather that we know that the meaning of compromise and not letting a perfect be the enemy of the good and the respect that we have for each other. I'm very proud of that, and I hope that this committee continues, and I know it will, that common sense tradition next year and beyond. That is the only way to make lasting bipartisan policy, which we've successfully done time and time again. And just to review a few, since 2019, we've enacted over 350 pieces of legislation within our jurisdiction, laws that range in impact from global to national to hyper-local. We started 2019 with the John Dingell Act, which was the largest bipartisan package of public land bills in over a decade. The centerpiece was the permanent reauthorization of the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the LWCF as we know it, under the leadership of my dear friend Senator Lisa Murkowski, and being ranking member, it was a great accomplishment. We complemented that with the Great American Outdoors Act in 2020, which provided $900 million in mandatory annual funding for LWCF and $9.5 billion for the deferred maintenance backlog on federal lands. We rounded out the 117th Congress with the Energy Act of 2020, the first update to our national energy policy in over 13 years. In the 118th Congress, we invested over $110 billion in the American energy, Western water, and public lands infrastructure needs in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act. We went to enact the CHIPS and Science Act, which strengthened and invested research at our national labs. And while I'm sorry, and I really am sorry that the Inflation Reduction Act was ultimately done through the reconciliation process, which is a partisan-only process, I'm glad to see the strengthening of our energy security that has taken place as a direct result of the bill. And I can assure you that in working on that bill as we did, I took everybody's input on the Republican and Democrat side to how we could basically have the energy we needed for today while we're investing in the energy we'd like to have for tomorrow. And I think we accomplished that. Onshore supply chains, we did that. We increased energy production across the board. Finally, this Congress, we've renewed 20-year compacts of free association with our strategic allies in the Pacific, Micronesia, Palau, and Marshall Islands. I just had the opportunity to travel over and see the beautiful islands and see what they have meant to us through the history from World War II and beyond. And when I saw what we have been able to do and the response they have to to the United States of America. It was really reassuring, and Senator Murkowski was with me, and we had a wonderful trip there. And of course, we reported a permitting bill that would benefit all types of energy and minerals with robust committee process and a strong bipartisan vote of 15-4. That couldn't have been done without the relationship that we have here. And I've always said this, for the committees to work, you have to have members that like each other and want to work together and get something done and understand our process. And the purpose of us being here is to do things and do our job and not basically kowtow to the party's demands. And I think we've done that and done it well. Those are just a few of the highlights that have been numerous other smaller packages and individual legislative accomplishments along the way. And again, none of this would have been possible without my friends on both sides of the aisle. Senator Barrasso has been a wonderful partner, and Senator Murkowski, kind of being the dean of this committee, has kind of led the way and showed us how to do it and do it right, and I couldn't have had a better mentor than Senator Murkowski. And I've been honored to be on leadership with both of them. I've also want to acknowledge my committee staff. And I'd like for all of them, because I can tell you, these are the people, the unsung heroes that stay here day and night when we finally come up with an agreement of an idea and a bill that we want to move forward. They've got to really put it, the pen to it and make it work and make it fit in a place that's going to be enduring. So for Sam, raise your hand when I call your name. Sam, David, CJ, Charlotte, Turner, Daniel, Chris, Catherine, Sean, Melanie, Charlie, Katie, Zahava, Sarah, Elise, and of course Renee. Renee has been the director and done an outstanding job of holding everything together and kind of being the traffic cop, if you will, making sure that we got to the end and got there safely. I just know that when you put a team together, the team works better when we know it's a team sport, not an individual sport. And this is what this has been. Each piece of legislation takes hours upon hours of work that most don't see, and I know that you all know how this works. And hearing, getting ready for this hearing, or business meetings like these, and then to negotiate through the enactment. We might be the conductors, but the staff and engines are the engines around here, and I'm grateful for their expertise. What we do here matters. The deliberative, collaborative, and bipartisan nature of this committee process is important. I want to thank all of you and all of my colleagues. I want to thank my friend Martin Heinrich, who will be sitting in this chair soon. Maybe. I think that's going to be a given. And I know that he will continue the bipartisan spirit that we have and the common sense approach in taking the challenges that we're going to have going on. And I just know it's in good hands, and thank you for all you've done. Marie Campbell, I'm sitting with chairmen that have been here before, sitting in this chair, and it's been wonderful for Ron and Maria to help, and they've been so helpful too. I look forward to seeing what the Energy and Natural Resources Committee is able to accomplish and benefit our great nation in the future. And I know that it's going to be something that we're going to be very proud of. And with that, I will turn it over now to my dear friend, Senator John Barrasso.
Well, thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding today's historic business meeting, as you mentioned, because of the number of bills, many of which are important to Wyoming. But let me lay those comments aside to just focus on you, Mr. Chairman, and your remarkable leadership here. I think it's been a highly successful tenure as chairman of this committee. You've been a great partner for all of us to work with. You've shown a resolute commitment to bipartisanship, and you've honored the most defining and sacred traditions of the United States Senate. Under your leadership, we've enacted bipartisan legislation that's going to make America and our allies stronger in the years ahead and the decades ahead. For example, and you talked about a few, we enacted the Nuclear Fuel Security Act to rebuild America's nuclear fuel supply chain. We renewed the Compacts of Free Association to ensure America does not cede ground to China in the Indo-Pacific, and I'm so glad that you and Senator Murkowski in a bipartisan way could go there to once again talk about the influence and the connection and the commitment. And we enacted a ban on the imports of Russian uranium to choke off funds that fund Putin's war of aggression and his war machine. And in July, under your leadership, we did what very few people thought was possible. We advanced permitting reform legislation with broad bipartisan support, 15-4. None of this would have happened without your patience, your persistence, your perseverance. So I come here today, Mr. Chairman, to thank you. Thank you for your commitment to bipartisanship. Thank you for your support of the filibuster and rigorous oversight in this body. Thank you for putting the American people and the United States Senate ahead of personal interests, ahead of party interests. We're so grateful for your friendship. We have such appreciation and admiration and respect for you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to miss you. We wish you the very, very best.
Thank you,
Thank you,
friend.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very kind, and I appreciate it very much. I'm going to miss you, too. So,
Maybe.
I really am. Yeah. Since we've been working quorum present, I think we have, I ask unanimous consent to take up and adopt en bloc the 51 amendments listed on the short list. They are amendments 1 through 7, 11 through 13, 15 through 31, 34 and 35, 37 through 49, 53, 55 through 60, and 62 and 63. Hearing no objection, the question is on agreeing to the amendments just listed as modified, if modified en bloc. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. The amendments are agreed to. I know we need, okay. So, where'd she go? Where'd you go? Oh, so. Do you want to look at Senator McCaskey now? Yeah, yes, I would. Yeah. And at this time, I'm going to turn to Senator McCaskey, if I may, and she has an issue to bring brought up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate this moment of grace here before the committee. I'd like to call up agenda item number 35, which is S3790. This is the Alaska Native Vietnam Era Veterans Land Allotment Extension and Fulfillment Act. This is
Without objection.
This is a bill from Senator Sullivan, myself, which extends the allotment program. It's been before the committee here multiple times. But the bill that we had originally introduced would make additional lands in Alaska available for selection by eligible veterans and their heirs. So this was initially on the agenda for the markup. It fell off the short list. We get that. It came as a bit of a surprise. But to be clear, this was also on our end. We've had some staff changes, and there was some lack of communication there. But after talking with Chairman Manchin and Senator Sullivan last night and again this morning, I appreciate being able to call up a substitute amendment for S3790. It provides for a 5-year extension of the program. That's it. There's a title change amendment for conforming purposes. But let me just explain briefly to colleagues why this is important. We instituted this into law. This was when Senator Cantwell and I were leading the committee here, that would allow our veterans to apply for allotments. But the program took several years to stand up. There were delays out there, and we are at the point where the program expires next year, and only 35 certifications for veterans have been able to be processed. It just takes that long. 35 out of about 402 currently pending applications. So we'd love to open up new lands. We don't have bipartisan agreement to do that. But we do have agreement to advance it just for a 5-year extension. So I thank both sides of the committee for circulating the substitute amendment. That's all we're asking for is extension for 5 years, nothing on the lands. It matches the language that I've already reported in my Interior Appropriations Bill for FY25. So I appreciate the indulgence of you, Mr. Chairman, and the ranking member for this, and I would hope that we are able to advance this extension by voice vote this morning.
Thank you, Senator. And I would say also, in repeating, as Senator Murkowski said, this does not have bipartisan support to open new lands, nor are we doing that. We've already agreed that won't be done. All we're doing is basically a straight 5-year extension of the existing program to work out the differences that we have. It's my understanding it will also report as part of the Interior Appropriations Bill. While it wasn't on the short list, it is on the agenda that was circulated in September. And if members agree, I'm happy to support this amendment, reporting this bill as amended by voice vote. Hearing no objection, the question is on favorably reporting agenda 35 as amended by the amendment before the members this morning. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. Amendment passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. With that, as we're getting closer to, we can start, okay. Now we'll move on to reporting. I understand there are a few bills that members have requested roll call votes on, so we'll begin with those. Next, we're going to move to agenda item number 25. Does anyone wish to be heard on this amendment?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator?
Headwaters.
Yes.
Chair, I'd like to speak about a bill before this committee that impacts my home state, Senate Bill 3346, the Montana Headwaters Legacy Act. Now, this bill would designate nearly 400 miles of river segments across 8 counties as wild, scenic, or recreational rivers. I am a lifelong sportsman, fly fisherman. I was fly fishing before Brad Pitt and Robert Redford invented it in the 90s. And I understand the importance of protecting Montana resources, especially our rivers. And when done correctly, this is not and should not be a partisan issue. In fact, back in 2018, our entire Montana delegation partnered to designate the East Rosebud Creek as a wild and scenic river. But this bill before us today nearly doubles the number of miles of river segments designated as wild and scenic in Montana. I have significant concerns about such a far-reaching approach. In the past, we've seen these designations hinder or delay roadwork, aquatic restoration projects, grazing, and fuel management projects, which is why legislation like this should be very carefully considered. I have received a lot of input opposing this proposal, including a petition from concerned landowners and letters from county commissioners, irrigators, and other important stakeholders. When compared to the ground up, thoroughly vetted, and widely supported designation we had with East Rosebud, this massive proposal does not meet these same requirements. So I urge my colleagues to vote no on this legislation.
Thank you, Senator. I'll make a few points here. This is the Senator Tester's bill that we've worked on and talked with him quite some time. As it said, as Senator Daines has said, the bill would designate approximately 325 miles of rivers in Montana, primarily located at National Forest and BLM lands, as components of the National Wild and Scenic River System. The rivers that would be protected by the bill provide outstanding recreational opportunities and spectacular scenery. In an effort to avoid any potential conflict with a hydroelectric dam located on the Madison River, one of the designated rivers, the committee has adopted an amendment that removes that river from the bill, which I thought was the greatest concerns people had had. I know that I've spoken to both Senator Daines and Senator Tester on this, and there's a difference there, but I think both of them are well-intentioned, and you've heard Senator Daines's position on this, and Senator Tester has worked hard on it also. And and I think by removing the dam, the hydroelectric dam concerns that we had, I will support this, and I would urge a vote on this. I understand roll call.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I also want to speak to this, if I could. I oppose the bill. The bill would double the number of miles of wild and scenic rivers in Montana. People of Montana have expressed serious concerns with this bill, worried about restrictive land designations that would obstruct hydropower development and mining in their state. This legislation may also have impacts in my home state of Wyoming, so I urge my colleagues to oppose the bill.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just respond back.
Absolutely.
There was progress made on that change, certainly with the Northwest Energy on the impacts of the Headwaters and Madison you mentioned. But that was just one of the issues raised. So we did resolve that one. That was good news. Let me just say this. There's 8 counties that are affected by this. Half of those counties, 4 of the 8, their county commissioners specifically have weighed in opposition to this. They're a very important voice in this process, and we need to keep working with them to get broader supports, and that's why I'm opposed at this moment. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else wish to speak on this? If not, the question's on a roll call vote for agenda item number 25. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Manchin.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden. Aye. Ms. Cantwell. Aye. Mr. Sanders. Aye. Mr. Heinrich. Ms. Hirono. Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Aye. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Risch. Mr. Lee. Mr. Daines. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Cassidy. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Hawley. On this vote, the ayes are 10 and the noes are 9.
Uh, 31 is next on the agenda. Does anyone wish to be heard on item number 31?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Cortez Masto.
thank you. In June, I chaired a hearing of the Public Lands Subcommittee on this bill, which is agenda item number 31, the Truckee Meadows Public Lands Management Act. It's informally known in Nevada as the Washoe County Lands Bill. Senator Rosen is the sponsor of the bill, and I have joined her in supporting this legislation. This bill reflects 4 years of collaborations with hundreds of stakeholders in northern Nevada. Washoe County's population grew at more than twice the rate of the overall U.S. population over the last decade. Some of the resource management plans for the county are more than 20 years old, and they don't reflect the growth or the needs of the community there. That's why this bill includes over 3,000 acres for conveyance, 15,000 acres for disposal to support public purposes and economic development in northern Nevada. It also resolves the wilderness study areas and creates new conservation designations across the county. It has broad support from key stakeholders, including economic development authorities, sportsmen, conservation groups, tribes, just to name a few. And let me say, because besides this bill and the next one we're going to call up, because in Nevada, over 80% of the land is owned by the federal government, it requires all of our stakeholders to come together to figure out how we manage that land in conjunction with the federal government. This is why we bring all the stakeholders together to the benefit of everyone living there in Nevada. So I would hope that my colleagues join me in supporting Senator Rosen's bill here today.
Is there anybody else wish to comment on this?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Barrasso.
Yeah, I oppose this bill, and this is a bill that would eliminate multiple-use management from hundreds of thousands of acres of federal land. It would also grant authority to the Secretary of the Interior to convey thousands of acres of federal land to local governments in Nevada. You know, former Majority Leader Harry Reid cut special deals like this for Nevada in the past, excluding other public land states, and Congress should not enact another one of these special type deals when other Western states seek similar legislation. So I urge my colleagues to oppose this bill, and if we want to come back and address this from a broader perspective of public lands, then that's a fine thing, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Barrasso, I would respectfully disagree, and I'll give you my reasons why. I'd worked with Senator Rosen and Senator Cortez Masto on this, and we removed all of those concerns that people had, where the money's going to go, how it's going to be spent, things of this sort. This basically is adopting the amendment, providing that the revenues of BLM and sales are treated in accordance with existing law, which goes back into the program, not any direct or any basically uses that they can determine in the local areas. That did not happen. So with that, I remain committed to working and continuing on that too also, but I do support the piece of legislation we have in front of us, and I recommend a affirmative vote on that. Any other people wish to comment on this? If not,
Roll call vote.
roll call vote's been requested. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Manchin.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden. Aye. Ms. Cantwell. Aye. Mr. Sanders. Aye. Mr. Heinrich. Aye. Ms. Hirono. Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Aye. Mr. Barrasso.
No.
Mr. Risch.
No.
Mr. Lee. No. Mr. Daines. No. Ms. Murkowski. No. Mr. Hoban. No. Mr. Cassidy. No. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Yes. Mr. Hawley.
No by proxy.
On this vote, the ayes are 10 and the noes are 9.
The amendment passes. We're taking a small pause. We're pausing for the pause. We'll be right back. All righty. Next, we're going to move to agenda item number 56. And on item number 56, Senator Cortez Masto, anyone wish to be heard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Give me 1 minute, sorry.
No problem. Go ahead.
Nope. So this is the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act that I was talking about. This is similar. This is the one in Southern Nevada. Again, it is supported by a broad bipartisan coalition, including the state of Nevada, our local tribes, municipal governments, conservation organizations, local business associations, Chamber of Commerce. This is how we have to get things done in Nevada. And this requires everybody to come to the table. That's why this bill, like the Washoe Lands Bill, we have been working on this for years now to make sure everybody's voice was heard in Southern Nevada. And we are including all of their input into this legislation. This legislation builds off the 1998 Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, which created a disposal boundary around Las Vegas managed by the BLM in consultation with Clark County. Why is that important? Because everything we do in Southern Nevada has to be in consultation with the federal government because they own most of the land. That's why this was important for us to come together and create this. It expands that boundary in very specific areas to accommodate a projected population increase in Southern Nevada of 820,000 more people to Las Vegas in the next few decades, along with the accompanying economic and municipal needs to support this population increase, as requested by my local communities and economic experts. Additions to this disposal boundary are important because Las Vegas is the largest metropolitan area in the country that is fully encircled by the federal land, Nobody else has to deal with that. Over 90% of the county is comprised of federal land. And this disposal boundary better helps the BLM to release certain lands for necessary residential, economic development in a coordinated and responsible manner. And it allows the county to weigh in on whether proposed land disposal is in keeping with the county's master growth and climate mitigation plans. Overall, the bill sets a cap of a potential 25,000 acres, and I know, Mr. Chairman, we worked with you on this, to be disposed through a public nomination and assessment process. It facilitates new development in order to impact our desert wildlife. The Interior Department requires Clark County to protect certain sensitive species, so we have to manage that requirement. Because of it, the bill establishes a reserve of land totaling over 350,000 acres specifically for habitat mitigation. It also facilitates outdoor recreation. We've heard from our outdoor recreationists in Nevada. It expands the immensely popular Red Rock Canyon National Conservation Area. It enhances land management through several new wilderness areas, predominantly within existing land designations, again, in consultation with everybody in southern Nevada. So I would ask, one final thing, the bill creates 2 job creation zones to assist local municipalities steer industrial development to the lands that are already developed with relevant infrastructure and transportation routes. I mean, there's so much to this, and it was a concerted effort of everybody coming together to figure out how we manage this land. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, for being with us in this conversation and trying to get this done here. I would ask for my colleagues' support on this important legislation for Southern Nevada.
Is there any further comment?
Well, Mr. Chairman, yeah, just that I must oppose this bill for the similar reasons I oppose Senator Rosen's bill, but I urge my colleagues to oppose it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Murkowski.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be supporting Senator Cortez Masto's amendment on this, and I'm going to be doing so because of the real effort, I think, that has been made to try to address some of the issues. There's some Indian affairs equities that are involved here, and I know that our teams have been working back and forth on that to on the BLM transfer to the tribes that goes into land into trust. And I would just note that in this case, we're transferring nearly 50,000 acres of federal lands to tribes, which has got the support of colleagues on the other side, which is great. And so as we're looking to do the same to address tribal equities in Alaska, whether it's our Chugach Lands Bill or, again, whether it's our Native Vietnam veterans, it is something that I would ask us all to try to understand, again, what it means to tribal interests to be able to utilize the lands that are their lands in a way that allows for a level of development, sustainability, and just appreciate members' consideration of that. But I will be supporting Senator Cortez Masto.
Senator Cassidy.
Briefly, I'll say that I'm also supporting this amendment. Senator Cortez Masto's point that we always hear about housing, and normally housing is a local problem. There is some NIMBY thing which says that you cannot build something because of a local thing. This is actually the federal land restricting growth in one of the fastest growing communities in the nation. And it's because we've encircled. Now, I think there's actually few things we do up here that directly impact the ability to expand housing, but this would be one. And by the way, I agree with Senator Barrasso. We need to have a comprehensive decision for all the western states. I am totally with that. But the kind of practical concern of one of the fastest growing communities in the United States being choked by the federal government, to me, seems wrong. So on this one, I am going to vote with Senator Cortez Masto.
Any further comments? Let me just, I'm sorry, Senator Lee.
I'm very sympathetic to the plight that leads to the need to file legislation like this. But I feel the need to weigh in here just to comment that we shouldn't have to lock up an even larger share of a state that's already dominated by the federal government, to place that beyond the reach of the citizenry in order to allow some people opportunities to do what they need to do for housing. And I think we've got to deal with these issues, but it shouldn't require us every time we do it to lock up even more land in a state that's already dominated overwhelmingly by federal land managers.
Further comments? If not, I'll just wrap up that I want to thank Senator Cortez Masto. She introduced this in the 117th Congress, and we had many discussions about this and trying to get it in a place that was good for Clark County. It's good for the system that we have in Benton and how we basically put lands in productivity. And I appreciate that. We finally come to an agreement back then, and time was running out on us, and you held that over to this Congress. So I do support it, and I would recommend all of our colleagues to support it also if possible. With that, we have a roll call vote, and the clerk will call the roll.
Senator Manchin.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden.
Aye.
Ms. Cantwell. Aye. Mr. Sanders. Aye. Mr. Heinrich. Ms. Hirono. Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Hickenlooper, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Risch, Mr. Lee, Mr. Daines, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Hovind, Mr. Cassidy, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Hawley,
No by proxy.
On this vote, the ayes are 13 and the noes are 6.
With that, the amendment passes. Next, we're going to move to agenda item number 77. This is the RFK Stadium. Is there any member wishing to speak on that?
Mr. Chairman.
I thought there would be. Senator Daines.
Mr. Chairman, it was 3 years ago this week that Don Wetzel came to my office. He shared with me his father's legacy and the history behind the famous Washington logo. He had a vision to use this proud symbol to benefit his people. An hour ago, I spoke to his son, Ryan Wetzel. Now, it was about, it was quite early in the morning, actually, now it's 2 hours ago. It was about 7:15 Montana time, it was 2 hours ago. I told Ryan Wetzel, when you're up that early, you ought to have an orange vest on with a rifle on your shoulder. But I asked him about the ongoing negotiations and the progress that's been made. Over the last year, I've expressed my opposition to this bill moving forward until the Commanders and the NFL right a wrong that was done to the Wetzel family, the Blackfeet Nation, and other tribal stakeholders in Montana and around the nation. During the hearing on the bill and last week on the floor of the U.S. Senate, I laid out the story of the deep Montana connection to the former team logo and how the team can right what has been a historic wrong. I spoke about the misguided and blatant attempts by the team, the league, and media affiliates to censor a proud logo. I called it out on the Senate floor, and I demanded an explanation. And since then, I've received assurances that going forward, we will never see that again. I charged the team and the NFL with a very simple task: sit down with the family of Blackie Wetzel, the man who inspired this iconic logo. Hear and listen to the Blackfeet tribe. Recognize the impact of historic leaders like Chief Two Guns Whitecalf. Find a path forward. I'm proud to say, I'm grateful to say, after speaking with my constituents, that they are satisfied with the ongoing negotiations with the team. And this morning on the call I had with Ryan Wetzel, he feels optimistic about the direction where they are heading. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I will support the bill. I will vote in favor of its passage out of this committee with the condition that the team follows through on the commitments made to the family. I think the best way to describe it, in hearing from Ryan Wetzel, they had long discussion just last night. There's good faith negotiation going on. There's trust being built. Ryan Wetzel is confident there will be the right outcome for the Wetzels and for Indian country. I urge the team to continue their dialogue and reach a conclusion that honors their past, that honors Don Wetzel's vision to use the logo to help Indian country, and honors the will of the Blackfeet tribe to restore the logo to a place of honor and prominence. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Are there any others wishing to speak?
Mr. Chairman, I join my colleague from Montana in supporting this bill. This bill would transfer the responsibility of administering and managing the RFK Stadium campus from the National Park Service to the District of Columbia. It would relieve the Park Service of the condemned RFK Stadium and the costs associated with addressing the property. The House passed this bill by a vote of 348 to 55. Two House committee chairmen strongly support the bill. If this bill is enacted, the federal government will retain ownership of the RFK campus. I would also note that the district is not a state. It is the federal city, and we all have an interest in eliminating blight within its borders, so I urge members to support the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any others? Let me just follow up by saying that we've spent a lot of time on this, and our staffs have gone down and done a complete tour of the site, which is in disrepair and needs to have an infusion of capital to put it back in the shape that it should be. And I think for the capital city of the United States of America, it's only befitting that we do this. For that, we've talked to the president of the organization now, the new owner, and Josh has been very receptive. He is working, I think, in good faith, and I think he's a man of his word, and I think that you see what he's done with the team and how he's turned it around. And it's the pride of Washington now, everybody, I think, that followed the old Washington team, and I was one who followed them forever because of my dear friend from Farmington, West Virginia, Sam Huff, who ended his playing career with Washington, and I used to come and sit in the box with him and watch these games, but I was always a diehard Steeler fan, so the only problem I had is when the Steelers played the Washington. I had a problem then, but other than that, I'm a diehard Washington fan also. So with that, I think this is befitting for us to move this forward, to finally allow, because the way it does right now, Congress has given the district and federal agencies standing authority to transfer administrative jurisdiction over federal parcels in the district. This bill is necessary because a 1986 law, which required the land to be used only for stadium purposes, is still in effect. But the remaining time on the lease is not long enough to allow the district government to make long-term plans for the site. All we're doing is basically completing a multifaceted approach to fixing this property and making it something that we can all be proud of. So with that, if there's no other discussion, I think.
Mr. Chair, you may be showing your age citing Sam Huff as your favorite football player.
Sam Huff was like my brother growing up. He used to work for my grandfather and my father in a little grocery store and furniture store, and I used to tag along as a little kid with him all the time. So he was, it's even worse.
Mr. Chair, if I just,
Senator Rich says I'm older than that. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say one other point. You know, this logo was not a character. It's a historic person. It's Chief Two Guns Whitegaff, a Blackfeet chief.
If anybody has a Chief Two Guns, I'm for.
Yeah. The only thing better than 2 guns is 3 guns, we say in Montana, but I'll tell you. But Mr. Chairman, the Blackfeet tribe, the current chairman and all the tribal council members of the Blackfeet tribe wrote a letter in support of this logo. I think it's very important. It restores dignity, honor. There's great pride in this logo. They want to see it restored to prominence.
I can tell you one thing. I truly believe in the character of Josh Harris, the new president of the Commanders, what he has done so far. I believe he'll be well taken care of, and I believe it'll be very fair. So we look forward to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I just want to point out, if you want to, update, is Jaden Daniels right now, the LSU grad, who is actually helping as opposed to Sam Huff. And one more thing I also want to point out, the Super Bowl will be in New Orleans this coming in 2025, so I look forward to hosting all of you.
Oh, my. Okay.
The NFL will, I'm sure. Give them a call.
Any further discussions? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Manchin.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Sanders.
No by proxy.
Mr. Heinrich.
Aye.
Ms. Hirono. Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Risch. Mr. Lee. Mr. Daines. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Cassidy. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Hawley. On this vote, the ayes are 17 and the noes are 2.
Let's go, Commanders. The amendment passes. With that, we have one more on the agenda for item number 53. Does anyone wish to be heard on number 53? Senator Daines, you're on a roll.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the Bull Mountains Mines near Roundup, Montana, it provides over 250 Montanans with high-paying jobs and great benefits. In fact, their average salary is $135,000 a year. The mine is also the lifeblood of Muscle County, not only providing jobs, but hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes to the local community. Unfortunately, because of government inaction and continuous delays, the mine is on the verge of closing if we do not take action today. My bill, Senate Bill 4432, simply allows for very specific sections of federal minerals to be mined in order to keep the mine operating while the Office of Surface Mining finishes their long and way overdue supplemental review. This area has been mined and reclaimed for over a decade. The mine operates under Montana's very high environmental standards. Further, the mine enjoys broad local support. Every county commissioner, the Roundup mayor, local officials, the governor of Montana, the superintendent of public instruction, all supporting the continued operation of the mine. We must pass legislation to ensure that these jobs are not lost as soon as early next year. And that's why this needs to be passed. It's what my bill does. It gives a short-term extension to a long overdue issue. I want to thank Chairman Manchin. I want to thank Ranking Member Barrasso for working with me on this amendment. I ask my colleagues to stand with me, the hardworking miners back in Montana, the folks in Roundup, and to pass this bill. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any others wish to comment on the bill? Let me say in closing this, that I've looked into this extensively, and what we have is that this mine is important to close to, like you said, 300 families, and depending on it in the area. But with that, they're not trying to circumvent any of the environmental oversight. The EIS, which is the environmental impact statement that they're going through, they've been on it for 1 year now. They thought they'd be able to complete it. Department of Interior is working on it. We're giving them an extension to basically do that, but also allow to mine in a limited amount, not just basically giving carte blanche to the whole property until the EIS is done. This is what this has done. This is not, as you said, they didn't ask for. They would have loved to have been able to go and start developing all the 2,600 acres? But this is an 800 acre, which they've been working on. They've applied, they're meeting all the EIS, but that hasn't been completed yet. So this is a 1 year extension on that to allow them to complete the EIS study. So for that reason, I will be supporting it.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
can I be heard? So just for clarification, because I did not see this in my reading of this. So this is an extension for 1 year to allow an EIS study to be done?
Allow them to continue
that
to
correct?
mine without shutting down.
Without shutting down the mine?
Right.
And so let me just say, as somebody from a mining state, I so appreciate anybody that has to address their mining needs that brings economic development to a community that would otherwise not have it, but still manage responsibly the land and the environmental issues around it, and also have to deal with the federal government, which unfortunately oftentimes is very slow, along with, as we know, litigation that slows it down. So because I am not as familiar with this, I'm going to say no now, but I am open to, if this moves out of committee, on the floor to further exploring this with my colleague to understand it better and just make sure that the environmental impacts and the EIS is not somehow negated, and that still is a process that's going to be part of mining and moving
I can assure
forward.
you that we checked into that to make sure, and I have my counsel here if you'd like to speak to them.
What is the specific language that it's just for an extension for a year? What does it say?
Hold on, we'll pass it. Sam, what do you have? Mike, Sam, Mike, your mic.
This is number 53, is it not?
Correct, 53.
Let me just, while Sam's looking that up, the court ordered the Office of Surface Mining to complete their new EIS by December of '22. It was court ordered. If they'd have kept on that timeline, we wouldn't be here right now.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
So
They,
let's-
they just are, they've been working in good faith, but the Office of Surface Mining has just violated a court order to get it done now nearly 2 years ago to complete it. This is a Band-Aid that allows the mine to survive. Otherwise, they're laying off folks in Q1 of 2025.
So for that reason, let me just say, I am going to be, I will help to move this out of committee, but I want to make sure that the language, what you're saying, and not that I disagree with you, but have a better understanding of the specific language if it were to move to the floor as we move it. So
I think what
for
you're
that
asking,
reason, I just respect what you're trying to do here and
Yeah.
your challenges with the federal government and the courts and the fight for our mining lands. But I just have to stress as well, the environmental protection has to be along with it. We
not-
have to make sure we're doing everything we can
And
to be
See
responsible.
if I might respond, that first of all, the court's in the right place, so we're not fighting the courts here. The courts ordered this to be done, and the OSM's in violation of the court order right now. This is the desperate situation we're in. They must continue to abide by all the environmental regulations. There's nothing being done in any way undermine the environmental standards. It's just looking for an
not
extension
trying to- they're not
to
trying to-
allow
Your
them to stay in
extension,
business
that's it.
until this gets done. That's what we're asking
Sam,
for.
real quick, and then I'll go to Senator Hirono.
First, there already is a lease in place. The site is being mined, and as Senator Dane said, the problem is that it can only go so far, and they're about to run up against the area that they can mine. There has been an amendment filed to a modification, so this has been around a long time. And what this does is to simply say that the lessee can continue to mine another additional 800 acres, which is all part of its lease. It's not getting anything extra. There is not a one-year term limit on the legislation. That is a practical aspect of the 800 acres. The 800 acres will last another year.
That's based on basically what they think it'll take them time to finish the EIS, as I'm understanding on that.
Yes.
They're not asking to circumvent anything. They're going by, I mean, they've been straight ahead, just the time is running out, and they have mined up to where they can't go any further and has to shut down. That's all they've asked for.
Yeah.
Senator Hirono.
Clarification, please. So we're told that this is an extension of 1 year, but is there anything in the bill that actually says 1 year?
No, again, it is not a time limit in the bill. It is an acreage limitation, and the time is what is anticipated. It will take.
Well, I would
to
feel a
different
lot more comfortable if there actually was a 1 year timeframe in the bill. So, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, if I might just respond, it's bound by acreage, and their estimate will be about a year before they get through that, so. I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote's been demanded. With that, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Manchin.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden. Ms. Cantwell. Mr. Sanders.
No by proxy.
Mr. Heinrich. Ms. Hirono. Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Risch. Mr. Lee. Mr. Daines. Ms. Murkowski. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Cassidy. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mr. Hawley. On this vote, the ayes are 12 and the noes are 7.
Amendment passes. With that, since we now have a reporting quorum present, I ask unanimous consent to vote in block to favorably report the remaining 69 bills as amended. If amended on the short list, they are agenda items 1 through 13, 15 through 24, 26 through 30, 32 through 34, 36 through 48, 50 and 51, 54 and 55, 57 through 71, 73 through 76, and 78 and 79. Hearing no objections, the question is on favorability reporting the 69 bills I just listed as amendment. If amended, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Bills passed.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Heinrich.
I just wanted to ask to be recorded as a no on agenda item 62.
Without objection?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to be recorded as a no on agenda item number 62 as well.
Also Senator Cortez Masto, no objection.
Mr. Chairman, I have a list, and I'll provide this, of those of which I'd like to be recorded as a no.
Without objection? Senator,
I've got a couple of remarks to give on bills. I want to do that at the appropriate time. Let me know when you'd like me to do it.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into a short colloquy with Senator King and Senator Cassidy, if it's appropriate at this time.
absolutely. And then we'll finish up. Senator Lee, we'll let you finish up at the end, okay?
Gotcha.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is about two items that are on the agenda, items number 2 and number 4. This is regarding offshore revenue sharing. Folks around the dais here have always heard me reiterate that Alaska should be eligible for the very same offshore revenue sharing as other coastal producing states, notably the Gulf Coast states. I was pretty unhappy back in 2006 when Alaska was cut out of the initial deal, and since that time, and when I was chairman of this committee, I drew a line that there wasn't going to be any updates to this program unless Alaska was brought to the table, and I still hold that view today. So I was a little bit disappointed to see S-373, the RISE Act, was reintroduced again this Congress without Alaska included. Again, as I've noted, we have the largest coastline in the state, tremendous offshore potential, so it's not fair, it's not acceptable that Alaska be left ineligible for the same revenue sharing as other states. But we've worked with the bill's sponsors to find an equitable path forward, and we've reached agreement that Alaska is not going to be left behind. So I've talked to Senator Whitehouse on this a lot, and I'm going to look to Senator Cassidy and Senator King to affirm their commitments to me that Alaska will be included as any final revenue sharing measure that's agreed to in this Congress. And with those commitments in place, I can support S-373, which is the RISE Act, here at the committee level, and I'm pleased that we can report my bill S-620, which is the Alaska Offshore Parity Act, alongside it. So I thank the chairman and the ranking member, and I would yield to Senator King and Senator Cassidy.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Murkowski. You have my commitment to that. And I appreciate my colleagues for continued support of the RISE Act. I thank Chair Manchin for agreeing to include the bill in the markup. And I also thank Senator Whitehouse for making the RISE Act a truly bipartisan effort. Offshore revenue sharing is critical to our coastal resiliency in Louisiana. In the hour that we've been here, we have lost a football field of land, and every time you lose land, the force of a hurricane hitting an inland city is that much greater, because the land that previously was there is not there to dissipate. By our state constitution, whatever money we get from this will go to coastal restoration. And I think the benefits of that are marked by FEMA, which says that for every $1 invested in mitigation, you get $6 in protected, $6 savings on future damage. Now, after Hurricane Helene, and I think we just submitted $100 billion for disaster mitigation in this Congress, we can understand that it's not just a coastal issue, it's also a riverine system issue, and that if we invest as a nation in mitigating this risk, we are going to save down the road. And it's going to be, in some cases, pretty quickly. Not in the by and by, but in the next 5 to 10 years. So, and people forget, by the way, but not the chair, that the oil and gas revenue from off the outer continental shelf in the Gulf of Mexico is a backbone for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the LWCF. And through the LWCF and under the RISE Act, every state in our nation will benefit directly or indirectly from this offshore revenue sharing. Every state. I also want to thank my colleagues, Senators King, Daines, Heinrich, Hickenlooper, Padilla, who represent both coastal and inland states for co-sponsoring the bill this Congress. I also want to point out that support for RISE has grown outside of D.C. I have letters and statements of support from offshore revenue sharing in the RISE Act from more than 120 organizations and government officials, including Louisiana's Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, Louisiana's Department of Energy and Natural Resources, parishes advocating for coastal endurance, the American Association of Port Authorities, the National Association of Counties, the National Ocean Industries Association, and the South Central Industrial Association. I want to close by reaffirming two commitments related to the bill. Again, fully supporting Senator Murkowski's bill to establish a revenue-sharing program off coastal Alaska. I want to ensure that the interests of Alaskans, Louisianians, and all Americans are addressed with revenue sharing. And I agree with the chair, the bill should be fully offset. We have a list of bipartisan pay-fors that should cover the full cost. It's ready for the Senate floor. While not focusing on pay-fors today due to jurisdictional issues, I will work with Senate leadership to offset. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator King.
I also want to express my renewed commitment to equity and fairness on this bill, which is all it is, in order to include all coastal states in the benefits from these revenues. So, of course, Alaska should be part of this this resolution. And really, what we're talking about here is revenues being provided to those states which are bearing the impact of these developments, whether it's wind power, oil and gas, and to not only compensate them for that impact, but also I want to emphasize what Senator Cassidy talked about. We've really got, we know we're going to have bad storms, and we've got to begin to prepare in advance to build our resilience, because it's a lot cheaper to protect from the damage than it is to repair the damage. I had a conference recently on the coast of Maine after these devastating storms that we had last winter, and that was the gist of our conversation, was how do we get smart and provide funds in advance instead of after the disaster strikes. So I believe this is a very important piece of legislation, and as far as I'm concerned, of course, Alaska should be included, and you have my commitment to that effect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further comments? Senator Lee.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the committee and its members for advancing a number of pieces of legislation today, including a couple bills that I want to talk about briefly at the moment. First, S-2132, the Catastrophic Wildfire Prevention Act. This bill responds to a fundamental problem in our forest management practices. For far too long, our federal lands have been managed in a way that allows forests to become dangerously overgrown, creating conditions ripe for catastrophic fires. Research shows that the Natural Stand Density Index, or SDI, for western forests is much lower than what we've been managing for over many decades. So this bill establishes a pilot program under the Forest Service to work with state and local agencies to identify and implement historically accurate SDI targets. By doing this, and thus reducing forest density to more sustainable levels, we can mitigate the risk of these destructive wildfires, conserve our limited water resources, and restore the health of our forests. Second, S-2151, the Utah Wildfire Research Institute Act. This bill adds Utah to the Southwest Ecological Restoration Institutes, or SWRI network, establishing a wildfire research institute to be housed at Utah State University. The new research institute will drive collaborative, cutting-edge solutions for wildfire prevention activities and forest resilience, benefiting not only Utah, but the entire region. We've seen the devastation caused by wildfires, lives, homes, and landscapes destroyed. The failed hands-off approach to forest management has left us vulnerable, and today with these two bills, we're taking proactive steps to protect our communities and our forests through active management and innovative research. Thank you again for your support.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to be recorded as no on item number 62.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Senator Hendrick.
I want to speak for just a moment on S-2151 that my colleague from Utah just spoke about. The Southwestern Ecological Restoration Institutes, there exist 3 of them right now. There's one at New Mexico Highlands University. There's also one in Colorado and one in Arizona. This would add a 4th institute at Utah State, and I very much understand why our colleague from Utah wants one of these to do this important work. It's they really are doing cutting-edge forestry and wildland fire research and partner with the agencies and the people who make a difference on the ground very effectively. I just want to make sure that as we add another institute, that doesn't come at the expense of the existing three. And I look forward to working with him to secure sufficient appropriations to make sure that all of these institutes are adequately capitalized.
I'm happy to work with you on that and talk to the appropriators and take it up with them. Thank you so much.
Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the chairman for working with me on the modification to Bill number 1764, which is agenda item number 8. It's the Western Wildfire Support Act. And I have to thank my colleagues for all of the work that we have done to put resources into combating the wildfires that we see now that are longer and hotter seasons in the western states. We obviously know we have to do more to support brave men and women who are fighting these fires. I was recently with some of these men and women in northern Nevada in the Humboldt-Tyabe wilderness area because they did an incredible job beating back the Davis fire, which had the potential of destroying residents and taking lives, and they just did an incredible job. And a lot of the work they did was because of what we funded and provided to them through resources. This legislation that we've just passed today really is compatible with the bipartisan infrastructure law that we actually funded to do wildfire risk reduction. It really focuses on the wildfire prevention, suppression, and recovery, which is so needed as we're beating down these wildfires. So I want to thank my colleagues for their support. I also want to thank you for supporting agenda item number 78, which is the Accelerating Appraisals and Conservation Efforts Act. This is a bill by Congresswoman Susie Lee in Nevada. I was proud to co-sponsor it with her. And what it really does is alleviate the land appraisal bottleneck, which is slowing progress on key land transactions and impairing progress on long-standing projects and partnerships that actually inhibit our states, municipalities, and communities nationwide from accomplishing conservation goals, economic development, and our affordable housing goals as well. So thank you.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad that my colleagues are focusing so much on the devastation of wildfires and the need to prevent them. So in light of this, I'd like to briefly discuss the importance of S4259, the Lahaina National Heritage Area Act. As we all know, Lahaina was an area devastated by wildfires not very long ago. Since 1984, there have been 62 National Heritage areas established across the country, none of which are in Hawaii. At the request of the local stakeholders, I, along with Representative Case, led the charge in passing a bill last Congress to require the Department of the Interior to study the potential to designate an area called Kaena Point on Oahu as a National Heritage Area. And that study is underway, and I look forward to learning the results. Since then, local stakeholders have also requested that the Department of the Interior look into the potential to designate the area of Lahaina on Maui as a National Heritage Area. As many people know, Lahaina was once the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii and is home to numerous cultural and historic artifacts. In recognition of this, much of the area was designated as a National Heritage Landmark in 1962. The August 2023 wildfires that claimed over 100 lives and destroyed much of the area shed light on how special Lahaina is not only to the Maui community, but to Hawaii and the nation. A National Heritage Area designation would bring much-needed federal support to the management and educational activities to Lahaina. I thank my colleagues for advancing S4259 out of this committee today so that the Senate can pass the bill and the President can sign it into law. Then the National Park Service can consult with local partners to identify the appropriate time to commence the study without interfering with ongoing recovery efforts. The historic, natural and cultural resources found in Lahaina indeed tell a nationally significant story, a story told nowhere else in our country. This legislation will help ensure that story can continue to be told and appreciated for generations to come. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Murkowski.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And I want to thank you and Ranking Member Barrasso for this hearing. It is quite an accomplishment to be able to move a significant number of bills as we have done today, more than 70 of them. And I also want to recognize the work of the staff because you guys get all the credit, but quite honestly, it's Pat, it's Sam, it's Renee, it's Justin out there. It's the people that are really making it happen. So thank you for that. I am pleased that we were able to advance several of our Alaska priorities. I mentioned the offshore revenue sharing. We were able to include Cape Fox remaining land entitlement, also the renewal of the programs to provide for monitoring of volcanoes. We're paying attention to them in my state. And also, Mr. Chairman, some of the things that you've been working on that I was happy to co-sponsor, the program on artificial intelligence at DOE, that's a great one, as well as Senator Daines' legislation to renew DOE's efforts on quantum technologies. I also note that we have Congresswoman Radewagen with us, so I'm pleased that we were able to pass out a provision there for American Samoa. And again, great visit. It was way too short, but again, very, very important. I am disappointed that we weren't able to advance a measure that we've been trying to address with regards to the Chugach Alaska Native Corporation. They've been trying to settle a patchwork land agreement for those in their region who were just devastated by the largest environmental disaster that we've seen in U.S. history, the Exxon Valdez, and they're just trying to get this resolved after decades. So we're going to continue to work on that. We made a little bit of progress today with the Vietnam vets with the extension, but again, it's really, really challenging when they are not able to select allotments near their ancestral homelands. It would be like telling someone who lives in New Mexico, you can select an allotment in New Hampshire. No connection, no basis. So we're going to continue to address this. Our challenge has been that it feels for so many in my state that Alaska Natives are treated differently than Native Americans in the lower 48 when it comes to land disposition. So we're going to continue to keep pushing on this and in working towards fairness and equity. But I want to end my comments with just a thank you to the two of you. The leadership that we see out of this committee, I think year over year, Congress over Congress, is notable for its accomplishments, and accomplishments only come when you're partnering. And you and I, Mr. Chairman, have had the opportunity to partner, but as I moved out and Senator Barrasso moved into this position, I've seen that same level of teamwork between the two of you and your staffs, and I appreciate it because it means we're getting stuff done. And so, Senator Barrasso, as you move away from that position there and go into Senate leadership as Majority Whip, I congratulate you for that, but I thank you for your leadership here. And Chairman Manchin, just thank you. Thank you for all that you have done. I know where your heart is on these energy issues, and I have appreciated every minute of your chairmanship. Maybe not every minute, but close to it. But you've held the gavel with distinction and integrity. I think we have been extraordinarily productive, and I don't think that we could have done it without your leadership. When you and I teamed up together, and so many around the country were all at Twitter because you had someone from a coal state, someone from an oil and gas state, and it was like, well, there goes any headway on anything that might be focused on our environment, whether it was clean or whether it's renewable, and we proved them wrong. We did some good things with our energy bills, and I'm proud of that. I know we're all going to have a lot more to say about those of you that have decided to just kind of abandon us, but I appreciate the leadership and the guidance that you and your team have provided the committee. So thank you both.
Thank you. I'm going to be turning to Senator Barrasso. Before I do that, I want to say to Congressman Radowagon. It's just such an honor to have you here. You've worked so hard on our item number 79, which is your House Resolution 6062. And in a nutshell, what it does, that bill brings parity for American Samoa to all territories for the approval process of constitutional changes. And that's well done and well worked and well deserved, but it's been long overcoming. And you've done that. So we owe you a great gratitude and all the Samoans. And I've had a chance to visit with you, and I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed anything I've done, to stop there for a short period of time and spend some time with all the wonderful people there. But thank you for your hospitality, but thank you for your diligence and your hard work that you've done to make this happen. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, can I get 1 minute?
Okay, real quick. And then, well, I'll tell you, I don't want anybody to leave because we're going to have a little ceremony we have to do changing of the guard real quick.
I'll be
Okay,
very quick,
go ahead.
and I do appreciate your chairmanship, and we're going to miss you. I think that's universal. I want to thank you for including several bills in today's agenda that are going to support Colorado's land and waters. On the docket are bills that maintain the federal government's ability to respond to drought, allow for voluntary water conservation in the upper Colorado River Basin, and to make it feasible for water users in southeastern Colorado to pay their share of building the Arkansas Valley conduit. We also have a bill to complete the original vision for the Sarvis Creek Wilderness Area near Steamboat Springs by adding 7,000 acres of Forest Service land and preserving the wildlife habitat and recreation benefits it offers. Coloradans hold a deep connection to our lands and waters, and I'm grateful that the votes today on this committee help conserve and invest in what makes Colorado so special. Lastly, I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for your leadership of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee and kind of pushing me a little bit and mentoring me for making sure that we do advance a secure, clean energy future through the Inflation Reduction Act and Energy Act of 2020, but also tirelessly fighting for permitting reform so we can get back to building in this country and through working with all of us on priorities for the natural resources of Colorado and our country. So thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Senator. And I'll turn now to Senator Brasso.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, let me make a couple of comments about the markup that we just had, because I delayed those because we were having to go on and talk about with high praise for you and your leadership. And I wanted to talk about a couple of Wyoming bills, the S-2867, promoting effective forest management. It's going to help us improve forest management practices and address our nation's wildfire crisis. A couple of other bills on today's agenda were 1553, the Resiliency for Ranching and Natural Conservation Health Act, as well as 4454, the Operational Flexibility Grazing Management Act. These are bills that are going to help ensure ranchers have access to adequate forage when drought or wildfire pushes them off their federal grazing allotments. And another is 5125, the Land Manager Housing and Workforce Improvement Act, bill addressing the lack of affordable and quality housing for employees of the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, and land management agencies. Lack of affordable housing has become an especially acute problem in Wyoming and Jackson and in Cody. And lastly, at today's agenda, 3123, the MAP Waters Act, the bill directing the Department of Interior and the Forest Service to publicly disclose in a single database federal waterway access points, navigation information, and fishing. And this bill will help the public take full advantage of recreational opportunities available for federal waters. But, Mr. Chairman, what I also wanted to talk about, and Senator Murkowski touched on that I think you said, Senator Murkowski, Congress after Congress, we've made magnificent amounts of progress in this committee by working together in bipartisan work, by teamwork, and Mr. Chairman, I have great confidence that that's going to continue into the next Congress. You're going to be leaving the body. I'm no longer able to serve as a ranking member or chairman of the committee, as I'll be assuming new duties as the majority whip in the United States Senate. And I'm delighted today to announce that coming in as chairman of this committee will be a strong defender of public land, someone who has worked on this committee tirelessly, comes to all the meetings, goes to all the hearings, studies all the bills, and is, I believe, going to be a good partner working both sides of the aisle on so many issues affecting, and that is Senator Mike Lee, the senior senator from Utah. And Senator Lee, if you could come forward, and if we could have Senator Heinrich come forward, and Mr. Chairman, perhaps we could get you to pass the gavel. We have photographers here.
We're going to do it. First of all, we have to conclude our business for today. I wanted to tell all of you it's been an honor of a lifetime to be able to serve in this position with these wonderful colleagues of mine, and we've gotten an awful lot done. This is a committee that continues to work in bipartisan. We have 2 members here that are going to continue that heritage, if you will, and I'm so proud to be able to pass this gavel at this time to our incoming chair and our incoming, basically, ranking member. Senator Lee? Thank you. Say something later.
It feels a little bit like the ceremony they used to do at common law. It was called a livery of season. When they would pass title and property from one landowner to another, they would hand over a dirt clod while whipping 2 or 3 of the youngest boys in the village so they wouldn't forget. So we'll dispense with the whipping today and use the gavel instead of the clod. Thank you very much.
Senator Heinrich.
I think all of you know that this committee is near and dear to my heart. We've done a lot of good work here over the years, and I look forward to continuing that tradition.
Thanks so much.
That's it. We're done.
So now we have the official